I was never good enough. My habit of constant comparison. Hey Reddit, I'm about to share something that's been weighing on me for a long time. It's personal, but I hope you can understand. My life has been consumed by this one belief. I'm never good enough. This is my story, and I hope it can help someone out there who's struggling too. It wasn't always like this. When I was younger, I was ambitious, driven, and had big dreams. But somewhere along the way, I lost myself in a constant battle of comparison, measuring every success, every failure, and even every relationship against the yardstick of others. At the time, I thought I was doing what was best for me, but in reality, I was drowning in self-doubt. This isn't just a story about comparison, it's about how it consumed me and nearly destroyed everything I valued. I grew up in a family where being the best was the standard. My parents weren't outright cruel about it, but the message was clear: nothing was ever enough. I had to excel constantly. If I didn't, I'd feel like a failure. My older brother, Chris, was the perfect example of what success should look like. Always getting straight A's, excelling in sports, and having a social life that seemed perfect. Meanwhile, I was struggling to keep up. Nothing I did ever seemed to measure up. At family gatherings, I could see the pride in my parents' eyes when they talked about Chris. And then they turned to me, asking about my grades or my friends, with a tone that was just a little too disappointed. It wasn't their fault, really. They never directly told me I wasn't enough, but I felt the pressure. Chris didn't even seem to feel the weight. He was just naturally good at everything, while I was trying to prove myself every day. By the time I turned 20, social media had started to take over. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, it was a constant flow of curated lives. And man, I was hooked. Every morning, I would open Instagram to see influencers living their perfect lives. Beautiful houses, perfect bodies, exciting vacations. I saw friends landing new jobs, traveling the world, and having what looked like the ideal relationships. And there I was, stuck in my little bubble, feeling like I was so far behind. I'd scroll for hours, comparing my job to theirs, my relationships to theirs, my life to theirs. At first, I didn't think much of it. But soon, the comparison became an obsession. It felt like everyone else was living their best life while I was just getting by. It didn't take long for the constant comparison to take its toll on my mental health. It was subtle at first. I started trying to be like everyone else, posting only my best photos, curating my feed, pretending my life was as perfect as theirs. I couldn't just post a regular picture of me at a coffee shop. It had to be a perfectly staged picture. I couldn't just talk about my day. It had to be interesting, exciting, something that would show everyone I was successful, just like the influencers I followed. It didn't take long before I realized that I wasn't living for myself, I was living for the likes and comments. At 22, I started dating Megan. She was beautiful, funny, and seemed to have it all together. I thought she was the one. But the truth is, I wasn't dating her because I loved her. I was dating her because I thought she could make me feel good enough. I wanted to impress my friends, my family, and especially myself. But in doing so, I lost sight of why I was with her in the first place. It wasn't love, it was validation. The relationship started to crumble as I became more obsessed with keeping up the appearance of the perfect couple. I started comparing our relationship to others. Are we traveling enough? Are we having enough fun? And when things weren't perfect, I felt like I was failing. Megan felt the strain. We started fighting about the smallest things, and ultimately, I pushed her away because I couldn't handle the fact that we weren't perfect. By now, my need to be perfect wasn't just confined to relationships. It had seeped into every area of my life. My career, my appearance, even my hobbies. I had a job in marketing and it was good. But good wasn't enough. I wanted to be great. I wanted to be the best. I'd look at my colleagues who seemed to be excelling at everything and think, why am I not like them? I worked longer hours, took on extra projects, and ignored my own well-being. I kept pushing myself further and further, thinking that success would be the answer to my problems. But no matter how much I achieved, it always felt like it was never enough. I hit my first real breakdown at 25. It wasn't a dramatic moment, but it was crushing. I woke up one morning and felt like my entire world was shattered. I had worked so hard, but I still didn't feel like I was where I needed to be. That's when I realized something terrifying. I had spent all this time chasing validation, but I hadn't actually lived. I began to spiral. I started drinking more to cope, diving into endless work, and avoiding any moments of reflection. I didn't know who I was anymore. I had become a slave to comparison. As my mental health continued to deteriorate, I fell into reckless behavior. I started going out with friends, drinking heavily, and doing things I'd never thought I would do, cheating, lying, pretending to be someone I wasn't. I slept around, thinking that maybe physical validation would fill the void I was feeling. But it didn't. Every time, it felt emptier than the last. I was trying to escape my own mind, but the more I ran from the truth, the worse it got. It took a moment of clarity, one night when I was alone, drinking too much and scrolling through Instagram yet again, when I realized that everything I was doing was for someone else. I wasn't living my life, I was living for the approval of others. That night, I decided enough was enough. I had to break the cycle, but I didn't know where to start. I started seeing a therapist. It wasn't easy at first, but I needed help. I needed to understand why I had allowed myself to become consumed by comparison. Through therapy, I began to realize how deeply rooted my insecurities were. They started as a child, always feeling like I wasn't good enough, and grew over time with social media, family pressures, and relationships. I had to confront my own fears, insecurities, and the toxic behaviors that had held me back for so long. Breaking free wasn't easy. I started unfollowing everyone who made me feel inadequate. I took long breaks from social media, focusing instead on reconnecting with myself. I learned to say no to things that didn't bring me joy and started doing what made me happy, without needing external approval. Slowly, I started rebuilding. I let go of the toxic comparisons, failed relationships, and empty career ambitions. I focused on living authentically. I started working on projects I loved, not because they'd bring me praise, but because I was passionate about them. I had a breakthrough one day when I was sitting with an old friend, talking about my life. He looked at me and said, "Kyle, I can see the change in you. You're finally happy with who you are." That was the moment I realized I wasn't just faking it anymore. I had finally come to terms with who I was, flaws and all. I met Jessica a year after my breakdown. This time, things were different. I wasn't focused on impressing her or being the perfect partner. I was just me, and it felt good. We didn't rush into anything. We took our time, got to know each other, and built a real connection. I didn't need to be the richest or the best anymore. Success to me now meant peace, self-love, and balance. I found new hobbies, spent time with family, and most importantly, started living for myself. I had to let go of the resentment and regret I had carried for years. I had to forgive myself for chasing the wrong things and hurting people along the way. I worked on healing, and over time, I started to feel whole again. For the first time in my life, I felt free. I wasn't competing with anyone. I wasn't comparing myself. I was simply living for myself, and that was enough. I began doing things I had never done before, trips I had always wanted to take, hobbies I'd always put off, and taking time to just be present in the moment. I learned to accept myself fully. I stopped chasing after an ideal life. I stopped comparing my success or happiness to anyone else. I accepted that I am enough, just as I am. The real success wasn't in my job or my relationships. It was in my personal growth. I wasn't perfect, but I was authentic. I didn't need the approval of others to be happy. That was the true victory. I'm still on this journey. I still have moments of self-doubt, but they no longer control me. I'm living for myself, not for others' expectations. I'm finally free from the cycle of comparison. And for the first time, I can truly say I am enough.